This has been the most challenging project so far.
Uri Designs, unique expressions.
Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, I am Uri and I'm so glad you're here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I transformed this two table into a one-of-a-kind beautiful table. My friend Ceci brought me these two tables. They're these, what they call them, C tables, and what you use them for is to put them right next to your sofa, right in front of the TV, so you can put your plates and your drinks on them. Here it is to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Then this corner was already like that, and they then split open right here. Yes, so it was pretty bad. So I decided to take the challenge and I told her I will make something beautiful, and I was so glad that she really trusted me, because I love when people just say, do your magic, do what you want, because then my creativity really comes into play. Started working on the ideas, but you will see how everything doesn't go as planned, and all the challenges that I experienced in this transformation. So let's get going. Let me show you step by step everything that went wrong and everything that went right. So to take this off was a nightmare, and then I realized that these were made out of cardboard, so it was beyond repair. So I decided to build new tops. I'm going to ask my sister-in-law Veronica to help me, but first I'm going to go to Love's to select the wood. So let's get going. Let me show you how I select the wood for this project. I went straight to this section. It's where they have the pre-cut wood, and I'm pretty sure any home improvement store have this section. I am looking for something that I can use that it's already edged and it's perfect. This is what I'm looking for. My goal is to find a long piece of wood that I can cut in half, and then I also found these little pieces of wood that are going to be used for the skirt of the two tables. Now this is the starting of the new challenge, how to cut this wood. I was so grateful that my sister-in-law Veronica asked me to bring the wood to her house. She has a setup in her garage and she has all the tools to cut wood. So she was helping me here, cutting the wood to the right size for the tabletops. All I'm going to have to do is go back home and glue all the pieces together and secure them in the corner with small nails. Watching Veronica use this table saw really inspired me to get out of my comfort zone and try using more power tools for my furniture transformation. These might be the next tool that I purchase for my business. Before putting everything together, I sand all the pieces using a 220 grit sandpaper. I also needed to make some adjustment on the size of the wood that I needed for this project, so I had to cut them also into the right size, and I used my hand saw in this case. After I glue everything together, and I also secure the corners with very little nails using my nail gun, and I left it overnight to secure everything together. After I build the two tops, I'm going to start designing the first one, and I'm going to be using these vintage magazine cutouts to decoupage to the top of the tables. I am going to be showing you how I prepare a sample board. I painted it in white. I used 2 coat of paint and I'm using Waverly chalk paint. Any white paint will work. And the reason why I'm making this sample board is because I wanted it to test the decoupage on the wood and the epoxy. Epoxy is for me something new completely, so I wanted to test it before. I was so afraid to mess up the wood that I'm using for the actual tabletops. And my son gave me a very good advice. He goes, "Mom, why don't you do just a sample board?" So this is my sample board. I'm going to be decoupaging the vintage cutouts from the magazine and my printouts. For one of the tables, I'm going to be using the vintage cutouts, and for the other table, I'm going to be using the printouts from the Miami Dolphins. And the decoupage technique that I'm using here is the iron technique, which means that I am using my medium, which is a clear coat by Dixie Belle as the glue, and then I'm using this parchment paper and my little iron to secure everything. What this does is that it melts the glue and it adheres everything much better. So as I mentioned, this is my sample board. I wanted to just do the whole project first as a test because this is my first time I'm dealing with epoxy, and this is the clear cut that I'm using, and I'm going to continue gluing everything using this method. And then I'm going to show you how I apply the epoxy to the top of this wood and to the top of the tables as well. Now I'm going to be using this amazing clear cast epoxy to add a clear and durable surface to the top of my tables, in this case the sample. I'm making sure that I'm protecting myself, my lungs, using this mask. Making sure I read the instructions how to use this product. I'm following the direction. It's usually, when you're dealing with epoxy, there's 2 different components and you have to mix them in equal parts and mix them really well. Instead of stirring it too fast, do it slowly. This is in fast motion for the purpose of the video, but this is the right speed. Don't stir it too quick, and when you're pouring, don't do it too fast to avoid bubbles. You don't want any bubbles in your project. Using a popsicle stick, I am just spreading everything on top to make sure that I'm covering the whole surface. Something important that I forgot to mention is that when you are printing on an inkjet printer, use spray on top of the printouts to avoid bleeds. And another good tip is, if you, after decoupaging your papers to the wood, you have bubbles, cut a little opening and apply more of your decoupage product on top to glue it back flat. And when you apply the epoxy, make sure that the surface is level so the epoxy will not be running. Now that I already tested the epoxy on the wood, I'm going to apply the epoxy on the actual top of the tables, but first I'm going to tape around here so the drippings don't go underneath, and that was really a challenge. I am applying the epoxy as best as I can on the sides of the table. And I think this is where everything goes south. I was not happy with the results, and you will see why. To avoid the drippings underneath, I'm using the popsicle stick. To avoid the bubbles, I use the torch. I love using this thing. It really works. Some people use heat gun, but I think this is better. It controls it better. It gets rid of the bubbles better than the heat gun. Just make sure that you don't put it too close to the surface. You don't want to burn it. What I find that the heat gun moves everything too much because it's blowing heat. This doesn't blow that much, so I like it better. And this is funny, but it's necessary. You have to get close and see if there's no more bubbles. And from different angles, different views, because the epoxy, it's very clear and reflect a lot of light, so it's hard to see the bubbles. But now that I saw that there's no more bubbles, I'm going to cover it and wait 24 hours. And you need to cover it because you don't want anything to go inside and dry there. I did the same thing with the second table, and I waited 24 hours to cure completely. And when I came back to both tables, I was not too happy at all with the results. And let me show you why. The top of the table, it's beautiful, but the sides, look at this. It had spots that the epoxy didn't cover. And I don't understand why this happened, because I saw that the epoxy was covering the edges, but maybe it was too hard for me to see in the garage. And this is not a problem. I'm going to take off the tape and sand off anything that is still there. Yes, the top is beautiful. I was happy with the top. I can even feel the paper here in this side. So, one more challenge. I needed to figure out how to fix this. After doing some research and talking to a friend that knows how to apply epoxy, I decided to just apply another coat of epoxy on top and on the sides. And I think that was a mistake. Look at those birds. They inspire me to keep on going on this project, really. They're not even worried about a thing. So what they suggested was to let the epoxy dry a little bit so the consistency was a little thicker, and then cover the areas that I didn't cover before. And for the top, to pour the epoxy again after sanding it, but it didn't work. It shows the pouring of the epoxy on top of the epoxy, and I didn't cover the spots. I tried my best, but it didn't work. So the next solution was to completely sand the sides of the top of the tables and sand the top of the tables to probably a little bit more to get rid of all those imperfections, and well, hope for the best. So I'm going to be painting the sides in black. I'm not going to apply epoxy on the sides. I really tried to stay with my original plan, but sometimes the things don't work the way you think they're gonna work. So I'm applying the epoxy again, but only to the top. And this time I sand the top more to get rid of the imperfections. Now I want to make sure that everything's clean, and I'm going to start pouring the epoxy one more time, and hopefully this time it works. My friend gave me this spatula. It's called a notch spreader, I think, something like that. What it does is that it helps you to spread it evenly because it has these grooves on the sides, and it works really good. I'm going to be using the popsicle stick also in some areas, and hope for the best. Like I said, just hope for the best. Using the torch again to get rid of the bubbles, and this time it worked. I love the results, and I am hoping that Ceci and Ernie, they both love their tables. Now all I needed to do is to sand off this epoxy that went in between the tape and the table, and then I painted it over using black paint and a brush this time, and I decided to paint the legs in black as well to be more cohesive with the design. Now that the side of the tables are black, I think it goes better this way. Let me remind you how these tabletops were. Very damaged, made out of cardboard. Now they have a beautiful one-of-a-kind table with a top epoxy, more durable, and made out of wood. And here's Ernie receiving his table.
Tables, the ones that estaban todos feos.
Shut up, man! Nobody's eating on that table.
Of course not, that's yours.
What the? Excuse me.
So yes, can you believe that from this tabletop I was able to create something beautiful, redesign completely the top of these two tables. I was so glad that my friend trusted me and brought these tables to me, because I know it has been a challenging project, but I have learned so much, and I'm so grateful for that. Thank you for watching. Until next time, and remember, I'm just here to inspire you to create something beautiful in your unique ways. Until later, goodbye.